Lines on Clay users, as ever, you are going to click the file that we have shared with you. You're going to make a copy, and then you are going to modify the values in orange. And we have made this about as easy as it possibly gets. What you do is you enter in your mean value, you enter in your standard deviation, and then from there, you pretty much get all of the information that you need based on this empirical rule. In fact, it just kind of pops it out for you based on your mean of -3.8 and your standard deviation of 1.24. About 68% of your data values will live between, etc. And if you change any of these numbers, then it automatically updates. So the kinds of questions that you might run into in a class, and frankly, the kinds of questions we ask you, they're just kind of spit right out for you. So we just wanted to show you these other things. What is the probability that your random variable takes on a value below some number? That's a very common question to get. So if you're working with a normal distribution and you have a mean of -3.8 and a standard deviation of 4, then what's the probability that your random variable will come in at or below 13.6? And let's go with another number, say 1. Well, that's 88.49%. Another kind of question that you would commonly get is, well, what is the probability that you will end up inside or outside a certain number of z-scores of the mean, or standard deviations of the mean, I should say. And you say, okay, well, I want to know the probability I land within a 0.56 z-score range. And, well, that's a 42.5% chance that you'll end up inside that range and a 57.5% chance that you'll end up outside that range. And then the last kind of question that's really common to get is they mix and match. Like, well, what's the likelihood that you fall within -2.5 and -0.45 standard deviations of the mean? And there's a 32% chance that you'll end up in that range and a 68% chance that you'll end up outside of that range. So we've given you all the tools to answer pretty much any of the questions that you would get on this topic. The empirical rule is a big deal. It tells us that if we are working with a sufficiently large, normally distributed population or sample, that we should expect that about 68% of our values will fall within one standard deviation of our mean, that about 95% of our data will fall within two standard deviations of our mean, and about 99.7% of our data will fall within 3 standard deviations of our mean. So this visualization in Desmos is here to help you out with that. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with the standard normal distribution, because definitely this is the easiest way, and it really explains why these values come to the fore. So mean of 0, standard deviation of 1, that's what we mean by standard normal distribution. And then we can use this tool, this normal dist, and ask, okay, well, how much of our data, or what's the probability that will fall within one standard deviation of the mean? And it's, whoa, lo and behold, 0.682, about 68%. How about within 2 standard deviations of the mean? Wow, it's a little bit more than 95%. And how about 3 standard deviations of the mean? Well, it's 99.7%. Now, word to the wise, if you're being asked like math questions in a stats class or whatever, sometimes they mess with you. Sometimes they say, well, how about between -1 standard deviation to 0 standard deviations? You can just go in and you can calculate this out. We've put together a cool little tool for you that, believe it or not, is maybe a little easier than this. But visually, this is a nice representation of what's happening. We're going to take you over to the spreadsheet we've shared with you in just a second here.